welcome back, everybody, to the Speakeasy Bourbon Club, brought to you by Birdies Bourbon. We're here with, and Matt, you know, I should have asked. So pronounce your last name for me, sir.
Eau Claire.
Eau Claire. Because there's a lot of, and excuse me, Matt is with Clearwater Distilling. He's in Utah, a favorite place of mine. Not a Utahn by birth, but he happened his way down there. And I got a lot of interesting things to ask you just about Utah in general. And you're doing some really what I would call kind of, you're trailblazing away and it's and what we're drinking. It's not going to be a flavored whiskey. It's not a liqueur. I'm going to let you explain that in just a second. But before we do that, and I've spent a lot of time in Utah, Matt, and I'm Cal, by the way, and that's Dan. And most of the time that I've spent in Utah is my cousin lives kind of at the base, not at the base of the mountain, but he lives at the exits that you would get off of to go to Park City. And I always go. He's one of my favorite cousins, obviously, because I've got a free place to stay when I go skiing, right? And it's a whole lot of fun out there, and I really love Utah. But there's some weird kind of things in Utah, and I'm not saying that Utah is a weird place. It's just when it comes to alcohol and what outlets of pleasure, there's some restrictions. But before we get into that, and I met some great people out there, and it's great meeting you virtually. I hope the next time I'm out there, we're able to come by and see your place. But let's say you're having a couple people over for dinner. You met them recently, and it's like, hey, come on over to the house. We're having you for dinner tonight. What are we drinking, and what are you making?
Well, for us, or in Utah in general?
Let's go for us.
Yeah. So, it really depends. I like to find out what my guests really like and then kind of cater things towards that. So, being a bit of a foodie and, of course, a whiskey or liquor snob, I should say. There's just a huge spectrum of things you can choose from. So I really like to find out about my guests first and then just kind of make them feel at home by bringing what they like.
Do you have any specialties?
Well, yeah, I guess, Scotch. I'm pretty deep into Scotch. Spent a lot of time researching. I would definitely, I appreciate a lot of scotches. I appreciate a lot of tequilas and mezcals and probably some rums, but and then I really actually also appreciate a great deal of cognacs and Armagnac, really. I think Armagnac's really underappreciated in this country, and I actually kind of like that because it makes it cheap.
Well, so how about I'll bring us something to eat and you just set the bar up.
Deal.
Perfect.
I'm more comfortable with that anyway.
That sounds like a winner right there. You got access to a grill?
I do. Smoker and a grill. Yeah.
And do you eat beef?
Absolutely. In fact, we've got a cow in the pasture right next to us. That's I don't know how much longer he's going to be.
Oh, it's due 30, hey?
Yeah, we've had this will be our second one that we split with the neighbor. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate fresh beef.
So you're in, are you in Utah County? Is that where you are?
That's right. Yep.
Just outside of Salt Lake?
It is. Yeah. Just south of Salt Lake. So, Park City's over there in Summit County, just to the east a little bit. And so we're probably, just southwest of that.
Well, so I've cheated a little bit. I don't know if you're drinking tonight, but we kind of pre-gamed for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, okay, which one? And so it was Matt, you and the team gracious enough to send these two bottles, and I'm very excited to get into them. I did a little. I looked some stuff up. I don't know, and I've looked in some liquor stores in Georgia. So I'm based out of Atlanta. Dan's out of Raleigh. I don't think I saw this.
I used to live in Cary.
Oh, do you?
Apex, I guess more technically, yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, that's where Dan's from. So yeah.
Right on.
So I'm having. We're starting with the Lawrence, and You want to give just a brief one before we get into some different questions? I know we've got, I'll give it I'm hitting. So you said a few things when we just started the show, right? And you said, so this is a rum, a cinnamon, and as I'm kind of reading and tasting, but I go in the nose on this thing immediately and I get cinnamon tequila.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it shares some of the spicy notes with tequila that really come out of the cinnamon really well. It's funny, that particular spirit, and Josephine kind of fits the same bill. It wasn't made to fit a category per se. Like, we didn't set out to say, hey, we're going to make a rum. But the way that one kind of evolved was, I was thinking from the perspective of a rum, but also in the context of a gin, where one of the ways that you make gin is that you distill spirits through a botanical basket, and basically the alcohol vapor goes up through the botanicals, and it picks up the oils, and it brings them into the mixture. And I was thinking, well, that's all good for gin, but why do they call it a gin basket? Because it seems like you could do other things with it. And so I thought, well, is anyone maybe doing like a rum through it, but instead of using gin botanicals, putting other things in it like vanilla beans and cinnamon sticks, right?
Yeah.
So I started doing some research on that, and I couldn't find anybody that was doing that. Nobody. And I'm like, well, it must be terrible. Like, why wouldn't anybody do this? But I have had this recipe still do, and I'm like, well, I'll at least try it, and put the stuff in there, and put a few cinnamon sticks in there, and ran it, and started smelling really good, and cinnamon was really strong, and then they're like, holy shit, it's really strong. It's like the whole neighborhood's starting to smell like cinnamon. I'm like, boy, I guess we used way too much.
You get the hazmat bill, right?
Yeah, right. But so anyway, ran it through, just said, okay, we'll just finish it out. We'll see what happens. Maybe the next one we'll dial back the cinnamon a bit. But it actually tasted really, really good.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, why isn't anybody doing this? This is such a cool thing. You can, and that really kind of opens the door, I think, to anything. You can run any spirit through a botanical basket and get whatever you want out of it. And then, so one of the other things that I thought would complement it really well is doing a bit of Calvados mixed in with it, which is an apple brandy or an apple Eau-De-Vie. So we've got a really good source of fresh apples that we put in with that. And, it's not a big part of it. It's only a very small amount of the recipe. And then, hey, Lawrence was born.
So I got a lot of, I've got so many questions. There's no way we can get through them in an hour. So we may have to do a redux on this one, if you will, but
sure.
So number one, you started with, you're a Scotch guy, right? And I would say that Scotch is a fundamental spirit in the spirit world. And it's very, what's the word to use? It's very traditional. It's very classic. It's rooted in hey, you've got confines, right? Or you've got guardrails, parameters. You have to stay within, here's what you get, right? You're in this cask. And unless you go through these processes, then you don't have Scotch.
That's right.
And that's where, and I did do a little cheating, and I read up on you, which I probably should have, right? So we could have a somewhat educated conversation, or an informed conversation. Let me rephrase that. Dan never lets me go by educated. So an informed conversation.
Good point. Yeah.
So you went from Scotch, and now all of a sudden you've gone down a road of, I'm losing the guardrails, and I want to do, you said it best, right? You've got a gin, a gin, a gin basket. Yeah. So you've got a gin basket, and it's like, well, shit, we can make all kinds of stuff with this. Let's see what we can do. How does one go from, I really like this Scotch, to, and by the way, let me back up 2 steps. You're actually, by trade, you're not a distiller, or I guess you are now, but prior to, you're kind of an IT guy, right?
Yeah. Basically, software and data. That's been my life for the last 25 up to a little bit ago, 25 years. So yeah, not much to do with making spirits, and not much room for creativity.
So does one go hand in hand with, because I mean, I'm thinking about, and I'm not a programmer by any means, but I've definitely talked with enough to kind of walk, they've walked me through the process. Hey, I'm trying to accomplish this. And they said, here's what we have to go through. Now it's kind of like a drink, right? It's like, okay, well, I want this and this and this. And then when you get into a spirit, then you get even more, you get less diluted, and you're more macro, and the result is a micro. So it's like, hey, we're going to take these 4 or 5 or 10 items, and we're going to turn it into this micro, output. And I can kind of see, I mean, is that what kind of jived in your head when you said, hey, I think I can do this? I mean, were you looking at it from a programming kind of way, as if I just put these things in the right direction, or no, not at all?
Not at all. No, it's really weird. It was basically a total brain shift. You spend all that time, in your career using, one half of your brain for all the logic and everything that you're doing with, it needs to have these exact specifications and, this exact output, to the total opposite side, where it's abstract. It doesn't have to be exactly like what you necessarily want. And in fact, there can be some variance in the result, as long as it, is really good. And it opens up the door to creativity, which, quite honestly, like I say, there's just not much room for that in software, and, almost no room whatsoever for creativity. Because, when it comes to business and decisions and, business process, which is incredibly boring.
Amen to that. Amen to that.
Yep. So, this was almost like my creative outlet, to where I could finally, express myself in a way that wasn't about ones and zeros, and it just kind of evolved from there. From the very first thing I did in the still, right? You probably read or heard about, me talking about my friends
it's
getting
better coming from
Christmas.
The guy.
Oh, thanks. But yeah, like the very first thing that I ran through was essentially Josephine. The original concept for Josephine, which was a sangria. So it's a lot of fruits and and wine, but you'd have to distill it, of course, or ferment it before you can distill it. So that's what I did, is I took a whole bunch of different types of fruit and, figured out how to ferment things, and had a little bit of knowledge because I read up a ton on beer. I actually was, I got really into understanding the way beer is created, and how yeast and everything has an effect on it. But anyway, went down the path and did a actually successful ferment on that, ran it through the still, and thought, well, first of all, it wasn't coming through the still right. Nothing worked like I was expecting it to. And I'm like, this is going to come out terrible. It's going to taste like, jet fuel or whatever. And it was good. It was like, what? This is actually really tasty. It's like, holy cow. So, from then on, it was just like, well, I don't need to necessarily make what everybody else is making. Not that I wouldn't, I would totally make a regular whiskey. And in fact, we got one of the products coming up here. We're going to try and make a particular kind of gin. But I'm just saying, I'm not going to close those doors, but I think these other doors are open for us. And I think some people are afraid to go through them.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, trailblazer for sure. I mean, this is, and a lot of folks that we've had on the show, and it's just to say that it's, why do I need to stay in the confines of, and I guess it's all in what you're trying to put out, right? I mean, am I trying to be classic, or can I do a riff on a classic that's just, I don't want to say just as good, but that's equally drinkable, but different.
Yeah.
And I think that, I was reading some of the articles that have been put out, that where you've been interviewed and such. And I don't know if we can get into the Utah stuff, just about, how you've kind of overgrown and accomplished is not the right word to use, but how you've you've put yourself in a very difficult spot to do the business that you're in, but you've gone down some roads and you've kind of made the long haul for the better, probably, of the community, right? I mean, that's the overall, the end result. But before we get into that, I mean, have you been to Oaxaca?
Not directly, but I have actually several friends who have, and I'm dying to get down there. And honestly, as soon as this plague is over, I'll probably be down there at some point.
So let me tell you what. So when I said that I get like a hint of tequila out of this, that's not what I'm getting actually. It's more I'm getting the agave, and and if you take a look at at what you're producing and kind of how you say you're going to produce it, I'm getting more mezcal out of this than I am tequila for sure.
Yeah,
And
but without the smokiness.
Yeah, see, I'm almost getting a hint of smoke out of this thing, oddly enough. and maybe not, but
that'd be a new one. No, everybody's got their own palate. I mean, that's the great thing about it is, it's like wine. It's not everybody has to enjoy the exact same thing. It's cool.
And maybe some of the notes he's picking up, remind him of that, and he's kind of.
I mean, it could be just in reference, but I'm getting, but when I say tequila, like I'm not getting like, the yellow label Jose Cuervo. It's leaning more to, it is going more towards, Añejo, right? See, or the really, so the Azul, so the white and blue bottle.
Oh yeah.
That's yeah, I'm getting that out of this thing like 100%. And then I'm almost on the verge of like a very lightly smoked mezcal out of this thing. I mean, this is, if you're a tequila drinker and you haven't tried Lawrence, I mean, this is the way to go right here for sure. I mean, this is actually really, it's intriguing. And can I be honest for a second? I'm going to be honest. I mean, I'm thinking, so because both of these spirits, I mean, it starts as a brandy, right? I mean, that's essentially what the base is you get brandy.
For the Lawrence, no. For Josephine, yeah. For Lawrence, it's more, it's a Piloncillo or a Panela, which is Piloncillo is a Mexican sugar. Maybe there's a little bit of that in there too. That actually has a bit of a smoky quality to it, but it's actually super, super subtle. Hardly anyone actually really picks that up. And then molasses that we use with it too, in addition to the cider.
Yeah, no, this is a great pour. It's and I did notice when I was reading up on you, it's, you said you wanted to, you wanted a spirit that you prefer it neat.
Right.
And I was really, and I didn't cheat. You were kind enough to share samples, and I don't know, maybe should I have tried it prior to, and then or you like going like straight off the cuff here and having it?
No, either way is fine. But what I really like about when people taste things, and when you get a pour of the Josephine here for the first time, I'm super interested to see what your reaction is, because that's what's really cool about it. Like I said, everybody's got a different palate and they get different things from it. And one of the great things I think about the Josephine is that it's like a wine where it opens. And it opens over the course of like a half an hour, and it varies so much in flavor from the beginning to the end that it's really cool to kind of sit there and just kind of chat about, hey, well, I'm getting this note now, and I'm getting that note, and again, everybody's getting different things, but it's great. And by the time before you know it, it's empty.
Are you having a pour with us, by the way?
I could, but I don't have it right next to me. I probably should have.
Well, you can get up and go get it if you need to grab it.
Right on. I'll be right back.
We've got time if you do.
Yeah, I got plenty of time. Be right back.
Okay.
This is, I wish I'd had time to send you this one. It's one of those things, like if you ever got off put by it, and it's like, I read all these articles, and it's like a rum, and it is because it uses molasses and such in it. But I can see how it's kind of rum based, but it's not like Bacardi rum. It's like you're drinking real rum. It's going to be very interesting to talk to get. So we've got some other rum folks coming on, and most people think of rum, and it's like, oh, I'm drinking like, give me Bacardi, or give me, I mean, it's kind of I don't want to call it baseline or whatever, but it's just not interesting stuff. And what he's essentially, if you would equate, would you call this a rum drink or a rum? Matt,
I mean, it's the closest thing that it's going to resemble, right? So I mean, and you got to give people some sort of point of reference, and sure, you could call it a rum, a variation on it. Some people have said kind of a spiced rum, maybe, but then when you add that cider, you've got the essentially a Calvados element to it, and the federal government thinks that, yeah, that's not a rum anymore, but
That's crazy. So are you having the Lawrence, or are you having the Josephine?
this is the Josephine.
Okay. Well,
first off, Lauren, what a conversation starter in terms of just you guys talking about whether it tastes like this, more like that. I mean, it's just so much fun to be able to be outside the box, right? With something that's like, I don't know what I'd call it. It's giving me hints of this, but I'll tell you one thing, it's really freaking good, So
that's just it, right? I mean, that's what's so great about it. And, there's been a lot of clamor around the Josephine. It's like, well, what is Josephine? And it's like, that one's the hardest because you could say it's a brandy. That's probably from an ingredient perspective what it most resembles. But
back up first. So it's Josephine, or it's Eau-De. My French is not good, so you'll have to help me with that. Eau-De-Vie.
Eau-De-Vie.
Eau-De-Vie. Okay, I keep screwing that up, but it's.
I know an Ude. I thought you were talking about a guy named Ude. I don't know.
Oh, no, well, I don't. We may know the same guy. I hope he didn't say anything bad about me. But it's Josephine Baker is on the is the female on the bottle, and then this is he's an explorer. You'll have to help me out where he's from.
Yeah, he's Danish. So Lawrence Peter Freuchen.
A Danish explorer. Yeah.
Yep.
But we've moved on to the Josephine, which is Josephine Baker, which held herself. I think she took citizenship in France, didn't she?
She did, yeah.
And she was a jazz singer.
She was a singer, dancer, flapper, everything from an entertainer perspective. Just got into everything. She just said, "Well, I can do that," and did it. And
but
then,
in World War II, I guess, and heavy in the equality and I don't know,
civil rights, big time. And in World War II, she was a spy for the Allies, which is great. Yeah, she actually hosted. People thought of her mostly as like a socialite, but then she was hosting people as a socialite. But then it was where spies came to meet and actually transfer information. And she was incredibly intelligent. She may not have appeared that way when she was doing entertainment, but behind the scenes, she's brilliant. I mean, she was fluent in French, fluent in English, fluent in other languages, and she would be able to handle all of these protocols for dealing with sensitive information. So, and then later on, adopted children. My wife calls her the original Angelina Jolie.
I mean, not a bad call. I mean, could you argue that that's not true? I couldn't. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
And we'll get back into the Lawrence and why you named it. But as we're sipping or tasting. So why Josephine?
Well, for one thing, we ran into the problem originally, right? Well, what do we call this? And Eau-De-Vie is what we can call it in the U.S. because the U.S. government doesn't have a specific definition for Eau-De-Vie. If we were to go to France, they would, kick us out of the country. But so we're like, well, what do we, and we were looking at all of the social kind of aspects of the Prohibition era, kind of a neo-Prohibition kind of a theme is, kind of our brand. We didn't want to go with the cliche all Prohibition kind of thing. However, when we stumbled on Josephine as one of the, kind of the icons of that era and started learning about her, it was very impressive. And it's like, well, instead of having, to give this a formal spirit name, like rum or whiskey or whatever, let's just call it Josephine. Mm-hmm. And make it its own spirit. So that was kind of how that came about.
Yeah, there's. Are you familiar with the Black Crowes? Are you a music guy?
Yeah, love music.
So do you know who the Black Crowes are? Mm-hmm. Okay, so they've got a song, and the song is Josephine. It's the name of the song. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but that's Yeah, it's a fantastic song. You should, and this is going to segue in eventually into, what are you guys doing at the distillery and the bar? And, things have been kind of challenging for 2020, but, it starts off like Josephine, you little country thing. And it's a fantastic song. And it's the brothers up there. They're together at that time. I don't think it's I haven't actually looked up the meaning. But that would be a really, really great outlet, even if it's not in reference to this. I mean, that's a good theme song for the.
Check it out for sure.
Yeah, cool. It's great. So I'm hitting this thing on the nose, and I'm totally like I'm getting. It's like so. You said this is sangria based, but I mean the first thing that hits me is I'm getting like those.
It's nothing like a sangria.
Oh, I'm getting those like no. I get nothing like a sangria, but I get those rich Fuji apples. It's like it's not Granny Smith, and it's not the red apples that taste like nothing. I'm getting like a good solid apple out of this thing.
Yep, there's a heavy chunk of apple in that. There's apple, there's pear, there's peach, mango, strawberries, and blueberries.
Wow.
Yep. In addition to molasses, which is cool, I wanted to give some tropical notes to it, and then there's the wine that we get out of Sonoma that we distill with it too. But what's cool is the strawberry, a little bit of the mango, and that gives it kind of almost like a vegetal note, so almost like strawberry leaves. And then
strawberry. That's what I'm tasting. That I didn't. Yeah. I do get the strawberry the leaves. I get the what you would cut off of a strawberry.
Yeah,
that's what I'm getting out of that. But it's still strawberry. It's just got a little more. It's not as sweet.
Yeah, it's not meant to be. It's just to kind of give it some complexity and just to kind of switch it up a little bit, And then there's again more sandalwood. There's some smokiness in this one too. And then there's some toasted caramel or toasted marshmallow. It opens up into a huge array of different things, and everybody who tastes it that I find that talk about it gets out different things. Yet again, like every time somebody has something new, it's like, I never tasted that. And then it's like, oh yeah, there you go. It's subtle, but it's there. That's what's so fun about it.
I get a little more alcohol out of this one than I do, not in a bad way. I mean, we're regularly drinking, 120 plus proof. So, I mean, it's not the alcohol part, but I get a little more alcohol out of the Josephine than I do the Lawrence, which I think is weird because I would think that I would get more out of the Lawrence. I mean, it's that I didn't look at the proofs, but
they're both 43 ABV, so 86 proof. And actually, it's funny, we played with that a great deal on the Josephine. 44 ABV was way too hot. 42 was too bland. And it's amazing, just 1%, what kind of difference that makes in the flavor. And 43 just opened up the most wonderful flavors, I think. And the other thing about this is it'll settle down. It's a new spirit, right? I mean, we just distilled this in July, so it'll mellow out, and next summer this will be even nicer.
Yeah.
So
at 43, it can sit on the shelf. I don't need to refrigerate this, right? It's good to go on the shelf. Yeah.
Yep.
What kind of wine are you putting in it?
So
grapes?
this particular batch, we got a blend of several rosés of red. Cool. There's a rosé of Pinot, there's a Cabernet, and a few others. I wanted to say that there was a Barbera, but I don't think there was. But several different varieties that came out of Sonoma that really kind of worked with this. And what I really like is that being a batch-based distillery and doing this all batch-based is we have the freedom and flexibility to change that out. So if we want to, experiment with different varietals and figure out what kind of brandy that we really want to dial into, or maybe just change it up every year or every batch and do that, we can. And I think that's what's great. And that's why, batch one is going to have a flavor all its own. We'll probably never make another batch that tastes exactly like this. And so that's why we enjoy it, is because, people can look forward to the next batch. It's like a wine, year to year is never the same, even out of the same vineyard, with the same varietal, it's never exactly the same. And we embrace that.
It couldn't be more true. Yeah. What would you think? So I know you, so you're keeping up with stuff and what's going on. and all the smoke and in the past, and it's not the first time that, and I'm not trying to take this away from you. I'm just talking about, kind of what you're doing and what you're using. But, so many years people have thrown or, fed them to livestock, the grapes that get smoke tainted from the wildfires in California. Have you thought about going down the road of how do you take this and how do you take those smoked grapes that people aren't going to use and
We're already doing it.
Oh, he's already doing it.
Out of the Willamette Valley, because Oregon was hit really hard here just a couple of months ago or a month ago.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
And so, the Willamette Valley had a lot of tainted grapes that were coming out of there. And even from, some past years, and, there's been fires in Northern California too. It's a great way to reuse or to use that kind of wine. In fact, most brandy, or I should say cognacs and armagnacs out of France, the wine is almost undrinkable. That they use for the really finest cognacs. And so you never know. I mean, maybe it comes out and it tastes terrible, like Concord grapes or something terrible like that. But other times you might get something that's like a real gem. And that's why I love this. That's why we're going to experiment all the time. And we're just going to continue that. And we find one we like. Yeah.
That's fun.
It's gotta be fun though, right? I mean, going out and, cause you're definitely in a category of your own. I mean, I don't know, how do you get reviewed? How do you get, and maybe like this, it's like, hey, this is actually good shit. Go drink it. And I'll be honest, when I reached out and I said, hey, this guy, you're doing something really interesting and it's something that other people aren't doing. I mean, I could start naming some, herbal liqueurs and things along those lines, but that's not your intent, is for this to be like a shooter or a mixer. I mean, this is it's a spirit, fruit-based spirit that's meant to be sip neat. And after your love of, you kind of stumbled upon Scotch randomly, and you're like, hey, how do I get these smoky flavors in a fruit-based spirit that you can enjoy the same way that you would enjoy a grain-based spirit, such as bourbon or whiskey or Scotch or whatever label you want to put behind it. And I think you've done, I've had 2 little sips and it's actually really good. I mean, I know some people that would probably say, hey, put that in the freezer for me. Let me drink it cold. I drink most things neat, but I think this holds up well in the freezer and it's not going to have an issue. And it's, I could definitely see people using this in other cocktails. However, I did Google. I put the Google to work today.
Oh boy!
And I know.
Here we go.
I don't have any pictures to show.
I told you not to do that.
Nothing bad came up. But I did, and I'm like going, well, how are they using this spirit in the, and this would be like a good swizzle, or in place of a rum, or I mean, there's lots of places you could use this. Me personally, I like a good cocktail if somebody makes it for me.
That's
I mean,
the best kind.
Right. Yeah. So, but these are things to me is like, I like my cocktail with 1 glass and 1 spirit. And this is stuff that you could just pour down. I'm going to hit this, Lawrence again and ask you to tell the story about how you, why? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Dan.
So Cal, Matt, you said you wanted to see the difference because when you went from the Lorenz over to the Josephine, did you get that out of him in terms of, I guess, how different it was, or did you get kind of the feedback you were looking for on that?
Well, I mean, I'll give him a chance to give a little bit more feedback because, like I said, this changes over time, right? So as we're talking here, you'll get different notes. But one thing I think that's good to point out too, whereas I really like to make these for the sake of drinking neat. But that is not to say at all that it doesn't go well in other things, right?
Yeah.
A lot of folks I know love the Lorenz with a cube. Same with Josephine. Opens it up a little bit too, and just to take that little edge off if you're not feeling it, if you're not used to drinking a higher ABV kind of a spirit. But then the Lorenz it's incredible in so many cocktails.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is a caipirinha. So if you just take like 2 or 3 lime wedges and a little bit of demerara sugar and you muddle that, and then a shot of Lorenz over top of that, it's incredible. It just plays with that lime really, really well. And then in a pina colada, it does exceptionally well. And then on the Josephine, I hadn't really thought that there were many cocktails that I would have enjoyed with Josephine in it. It definitely goes well with like a tonic, which may seem a little bit unexpected. But
No. Perfectly
No?
fine.
Okay. But what I've actually found it recently, and I'd never really been a sidecar drinker. Even though I really enjoy cognac, Armagnac, and the rest, I've never really had many of those. In fact, I can't remember the last time I did. And then someone mentioned that, hey, you should try the Josephine in a sidecar. And I'm like, okay, I'll give it a shot and just see how it comes out. It works really, really well. With the Grand Marnier and with a lime or lemon, and with this, it actually tones down the sweetness of a sidecar, because I think the reason I wouldn't like it normally is it's too sweet. But it really tames it down, and you get a lot more of the earthiness that comes out of the Josephine in it, and it's not anywhere as sweet, but just amazing. It plays super well with the Grand Marnier, and I think it really, Josephine does, we're finding that works exceptionally well with any citrus. So anyway,
Cool.
in terms of the versatility, it's there. But we definitely prefer to have it, just to be enjoyable as a straight spirit, because there's a lot of spirits out there too that you don't buy, like you're saying, like Bacardi or something like that. People hardly ever buy something like that to drink straight, unless you're specifically pounding it.
Yeah.
Well, and that's, I mean, ridiculous. I mean, anything that I've got on the shelf behind me is, I've got very few rums behind me that aren't from Cuba, and not to be snobbish. It's just, I mean, they do a good job. But I mean, there are other folks that make good rums, and this one. So I was going to mention a cocktail, and my first one is going to be a rum Negroni with this, with the Lorenz, and I think it's going to hold, because I mean, this is going to give me a play on both sides of the world. I shouldn't say on both sides of the world, but different longitudes. I'm going to be able to go from Oaxaca, or in Utah in this case, to which you guys are decently on the, you're closer, and then back over to Cuba or the Dominican or, Puerto Rico, would just name one. And I think this is going to be a really neat play on a Puerto Rican, not Puerto Rican. I don't know. I have to come up with the name of it, but I think this is going to be a
Caribbean.
Fantastic. Caribbean. Yeah, it's a Caribbean Negroni.
Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I think cool. That's going to be a great play for a cocktail. We may. You mind if I post your stuff when we do that?
Do it. So which one do you prefer so far?
So you're saying I only get to drink one for the rest of the night?
No.
No, I know, but I mean, I think there's such a difference, and I think that here's the way I would go into it. And you probably saw Birdies and Bourbon, right? It's a golf tournament, and all the time. And I would say, the Josephine is it's a good day drinker. I could go the Josephine in like a spritz. I could hit it with a little bit of something on top of it, and some ice and an orange wedge, and like that is my sangria. But I mean, instead of an Aperol spritz, I could go a Josephine spritz, and I could hit it with a little hit it with a little Campari, hit it with a little champagne, or sparkling wine. And
it actually is very interesting. If you have any sparkling wine, it's a great accompaniment. I mean, almost like getting into a French 77 or.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that's like totally a solid pour right there. With Josephine is it's a play on it. It's like a Utah French. It's like a Utah 77.
A Utah 77, yeah.
Yeah. And I would say that that the Lorenz is more. I mean, I could drink it in the morning without it. Actually, it would really go good in like if I were making I like it neat just fine. I know you're asking which one do I want neat, but I'm just playing in my mind of what could I do with these things if I wanted to do something. I mean, this would make Thanksgiving's coming up. I don't know if you can celebrate and the holidays. This would make a great like a spice cider. This would be great in an eggnog. Mm-hmm. This would be, I think this is a good early morning coffee drink. If you like a latte and hit it with a little bit of I mean, this thing is just like popping all over. You don't even have to add any cinnamon. I mean, this
Right.
thing is so solid. So which do I like better? I don't know. I have to taste that. Tell us your story about how and why did you wind up in Utah, and was the process hard? If you have time.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can give you the short version because it's not a real short story. But yeah, I mean, I lived back east, like I was saying,
Carrie.
outside of Raleigh, but all over, right? Michigan, Virginia. I actually grew up right outside of Washington, D.C. mostly.
Okay.
And my wife and I just decided at one point that we wanted to move west just to explore it because we're travelers and we love, just exploring new areas. And the Rocky Mountains, it's gorgeous. So we came out here and just kind of fell in love, and we stayed. And at one point, we actually moved to San Francisco and lived downtown in San Francisco for a couple of years.
Fun
And
spot.
then we moved. What's that?
Fun spot.
Oh yeah, man, what a fantastic town that is. I love the place. And we moved back here from San Francisco after a couple of years, mainly because it's when you want some solitude or peace and quiet, California is tough to find.
You're done. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really the only reason we moved back. But I mean, otherwise, the culture there, the restaurants, the bars, it's just it's second to none. Honestly, it's almost like an American Paris. But we joke too, coming back to Utah, because we spent 2 years in San Francisco, that we went on a 2-year mission and failed miserably. Didn't baptize anybody. But yeah, I mean, Utah is an interesting place, and honestly, it's really just about the outdoors. That's the main thing that draws us here, and you understand. I mean, getting up into Park City and getting up into the mountains, I mean, you can't beat it. And then if you go down south, you've got Moab, and you've got Zion National Park and Bryce Canyon, and just gorgeous areas all over out here. And then if you want to go camping, you can go an hour and a half out into the West Desert, and you got 5 square miles of desert to yourself. So it's for an outdoors person, it's paradise for certain. So yeah, and and honestly, a lot of people wonder, it must have been, why are you opening a distillery in Utah? Are you absolutely nuts? Because and the liquor laws are definitely strange. They're totally
lots of
unusual,
confinements.
There is, and it's no lie, and it's no secret that the church has a lot of influence, right? So they're going to have some say in really what the way the laws are made, but I don't think it's too restrictive. And for a manufacturer for spirits, I don't think it's that bad of a thing either. For one thing, our expenses are low. Our warehouse space, compared to someplace else, especially like a California or something, is extraordinarily cheap. And the majority of our sales are out of state anyway. So we're shipping a lot of stuff to distributors in different states. So the local sales, albeit healthy. And in fact, we've been embraced really well by the local community, save a very small number of folks who really haven't been a problem. It's just been a little vocal, but everybody's really been fantastic about it. And so it really wasn't a big deal. It actually turned out to be kind of a non-thing. So here we are.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'll have to send JH3 to see you. That's my cousin, and he's big, not big about town, but he's around town, so he'd love to stop in and say hi to you. But yeah, I mean, I think it's bold to do what you're doing, and I think you've definitely you pulled together 2 damn good spirits here that I'm like still kind of marinating on. I can pick what I like better. I can pick what I like better, and I can tell you why.
Matt, you stumped them. Well, yes, you did.
But I can pick what I like better, and it's interesting. So we had a recording yesterday with these folks at a golf course, and it's like one of these cult golf courses, and it's like, well, and the guy's been there since inception, and the dude that designed and created the golf course, he's since passed away, and he passed away as a young guy, et cetera. And it's like, well, what's your favorite? And he's like, oh, this is my favorite. And I'm like, what's your least favorite? And he's like, well, how could you have a least favorite? And I'm like, well, which one do you like less than other ones? It's all about framing it up. So here's what I would say. For my palate, I would go for the Josephine over the Lorenz, in that between the two, this gives me something that I typically wouldn't probably pick up, that I would pick up again. The Lawrence, I absolutely think it's great. And I think there's no reason to drink other cinnamon flavored liqueurs again when I could drink this. And I'm hopefully that I didn't mean that in any kind of way.
I think it's very positive. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just saying that I think that this is expanding on something that people are flavoring things with, not Clearwater. I'm saying I'm not drinking a flavored whiskey. I'm drinking something that's natural and unflavored.
Right. And that was really our shtick. I mean, we didn't want to add anything. After it comes out of the still, it's done. The only thing we're going to do at that point is either rest it with some wood, maybe, or dilute it. And that's really it. So, there are a lot of sweeteners and flavorings that, especially on the vodka range, that, that gets added out there. And, we just don't want to, it just doesn't, I don't know. It's hard to not come up with disparaging ways to describe that.
Well, let us say this. This is your show, so you can say whatever you want to say. We don't care. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, we're, people would look, maybe I'll say it and you can say, hey man, you're crazy. But like, we're not drinking flavored whiskey. We're drinking infused liquor. I shouldn't say whiskey. We're drinking infused liquor. We're not drinking flavored liquor. Is that a fair statement?
That's definitely true.
So, and I think that's where in all the articles, it's like, well, Matt, how do you fit into the category? And it's like, well, I don't need a category. I just want to make good infused liquor. And I mean, technically, couldn't this be called a gin?
Well, sure. I mean, it's made in the process that a gin is made in. I think, from the label standards that are out there from different governing entities, no, because it has to have a juniper forward kind of flavor to it. But the bottom line is, and at the end of the day, the idea here is I think the way that we develop spirits is what makes things different, and it's the fact that we take a flavor. And then like a target flavor, like something that we want to come out with, and then try to engineer the process to make it as a spirit. And so the engineering is, again, maybe this comes into my software background, but all the same, it's the ingredients, it's the yeasts, it's the process, and how you use your equipment. Because the type of still that you use and everything like that all has an effect, all has a variance. And it's what's fun is saying like, oh, how can I make something like this? And then going out and trying to do it. And that's how we do it. And so it's not like we say we're going to set out to make a whiskey, which a lot of folks I think that's the standard way of going about it. Not that there's anything wrong with it either. I mean, there's a ton of fantastic whiskey. But that's the point is they say, well, okay, well, I need to define a grain bill and it has to fit within these, like you said, these borders and these confines.
Yep.
That's what I think is great is like, we want a flavor and we're going to open it up completely to use whatever means we want. That's obviously a safe way to make something, to make it happen. And wherever we end up is where we end up. So, and in fact, one of the things that we're coming out with that you may appreciate really well is, I don't know if you're much of a cognac drinker or a brandy drinker, but we have been working on with a company in Bordeaux to acquire some Armagnac, because again, like I'm an Armagnac fan, but we're actually going to blend that with a rye whiskey.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So can you say which are you? What do you? So you're sourcing, obviously. Do you want to share, or you're not going to share?
Well, I mean, I'll share some details. I mean, obviously we're sourcing because we're brand new, right? We don't have stuff.
Yeah, understood.
And High West paved the way for that. They did an incredibly good job at creating some beautiful blends from stuff that wasn't their own. Yeah, right.
A lot of bottles back there. Yeah. So.
And I'm sure going to visit in Park City, you're going to get a few bottles of that.
Every single trip we ski in. I stay for at least a week, and we ski in at least 3 times. And it's like he's like, "Damn it, I don't want to ski down there." And I'm like, "I don't care. I don't get to ski here every week. This is my week, and we're doing it." So.
We're going to Park Avenue, damn it!
You're right. I mean, but it's the coolest thing, if you ski. But that's awesome. And sorry, I cut you off, but I do have a couple of comments after.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah. So what we're doing is, the Armagnac we're getting is aged anywhere from 5 to 30 years.
Wow.
So it's incredibly smooth, and it's definitely not cheap. It's it's
Mm-hmm.
really, really expensive. And the rye that we're going after also is, again, an older rye. We want something that's a lot smoother. And what's super cool about it is, and there's a lot of people that have done this. So if you go out and get your Google Foo on, you'll see that, blending a cognac with a whiskey has been done a lot, very successfully. And what's great, I think, is about the smoothness and the sweetness of the Armagnac, the little bits of bubblegum flavors, the spices, the fruitiness, but then out of the rye, getting the really spicy notes out of that, just kind of gives you that spicy sweet flavor to it that is not overly sweet, because we're not going to put too much of the Armagnac in, but that the end result is you can't put it down. Every time we make a test batch, it's gone. It just disappears.
Okay, so can you put a sample of that aside for us, that little small thing, and send just squirrel it away
for sure. And we're going to be trying to come out with that'll hopefully hit the market here sometime probably in January, maybe as late as February. The problem is getting stuff from overseas. I mean, all the tariffs and there's a lot of things
everything's
going on.
getting crazy. Well, I don't know. It may lighten up. This is not a political show. We like to keep it light.
Yeah, no,
keep it light. Keep it light. Hey, let's just drink and have a good time. How about that?
Cheers to that.
Yeah, cheers to that.
That new concoction, if you will, that sounds amazing, Matt, for sure. I mean, that sounds like a lot of fun for sure. And you said it doesn't last. You guys are just going through because it's that good, huh? What kind of notes are you getting out of it?
It's so like I was saying, the bubblegum notes and the sweetness of the fruit, and a little bit of kind of like a candied fruit, almost, from the Armagnac.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, a typical rye, right? The Rendezvous rye, the double rye that you've had from High West.
Getting some spice also on the back end. Because Dan loves the double rye from High West.
I do. That's really good.
It's a fantastic rye. It's an amazing, and they actually share a lot of the things in common, like between Bullet and between High West, and they actually source from the same place.
Oh, okay.
It's all MGP out of the Midwest, and but they make incredible stuff. They do a fantastic job at that. So it's going to be similar in the notes to that from those, but the way they play together. Yeah, I think is really where it shines. I think those two, if you think, a spicy sweet, like a pepper jelly almost, or that kind of a thing.
That's what I was getting at, how they gel together.
Yeah.
I see what you did there.
Together, love it.
No, I wasn't making fun, but
it happened organically, and I mean that's what's cool. But that's where, so Matt, what I was mentioning earlier, like if you don't care to mention, and a lot of folks are afraid to say like, oh, I can't tell you where I get it from, and we can probably guess on 3 fingers where they get it from. You can probably drill it down to 1, and then maybe you have to raise a half a finger, and then the third one you may get a stretch on, but then we probably know that too. And people are afraid to do it. It's like you shouldn't be afraid of being a new distillery or a new blender, however you want to reference it. You shouldn't be afraid of announcing like, hey, I'm getting something from these people and they're making damn good stuff. And I guess the bad news is their stock's going up, and but in turn your stock is going up as well, and I think it's all positive all the way around. So
I mean, I'm not afraid of it. Like you said, it's no big deal. The big thing too is to recognize that not a lot of people are actually blending brandy and whiskey.
No, that's the more unique thing about it. It doesn't even matter where you're sourcing it from.
So and even if somebody does, that's fine. I mean, I'm sure after we do it, and when people see, I'm fairly confident it'll sell a few bottles. That 1 or 2 other places may try it.
I mean, aren't you already like you need more capacity?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a secret here, man. I mean, it's like, hey, yes, I would love to send you more bottles. We're making as much. And by the way, so I segued myself in ourselves into a unique spot here. So you've got a new spot in Utah County.
Yep.
And you were opening up. Is the tasting room, the concept, is that open yet, or did that get? Got kind of
COVID threw a whole wrench and everything. You know, and what's funny is we opened right around St. Patrick's Day, which is basically when COVID hit.
Hey, by the way, hey, thanks for opening. I have a note for you. You know, it's like you couldn't get a bigger kick in the balls for that
right
one,
there.
but,
Squarely.
yeah.
So we had all these aspirations, you know, we've been working on this for years, right? I mean, it's not like we just figured out in January we're going to open a distillery. It's actually been over 3 years now that we've been working on this. So we had all the marketing ideas set up to really focus on premise, which is bars and restaurants. And, you know, as soon as COVID hits, you know, the first wave of it, it's like, what now? Because everything, you know, everybody kind of shut down at that point too, just, out of, to be safe. And it was like, okay, we got to pivot really quick. So, you know, we moved to e-commerce and to do online sales. And I'm really glad we did that because that's been healthy. So yeah, I mean, the tasting room all but went by the wayside. Everything that we had planned, we had a huge opening gala we were going to have and invite all sorts of folks. And, you know, part of our fundraising campaign was to invite folks down too. And
we hadn't met at the time, but when you do the new reopening or the original reopening, we 2 tickets, please.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got it. And we're going to do it. I mean, as soon as this is under control,
no doubt.
You bet.
I mean, this is good stuff.
Yeah, we're gonna book. You know, I would have booked. I used to joke all the time about having Van Halen play on my birthday, and it's been a sad year for that.
No. Get Wolfgang. We'll get Wolfgang.
Yeah, fair.
Wolfgang Van Halen. Yeah.
There you go. And maybe David will join him. I don't know, but you know, we'll try to get something back together. But we want to have something big. We're gonna have a big blowout. That's for sure.
Do the Robinsons do Black Crows and let them play Josephine.
Josephine. There you go. But yeah, you guys are absolutely invited. I mean, by all means. So yeah, we're really looking forward to that. But we took all the money that, you know, right now our showroom is kind of. It fits the bill, you know, to be able to do curbside stuff for the local folks, and but by no means is it set up the way we want to have it set up for when we're going to be in full swing, and that'll come, and that'll happen, and I'm confident with that. And I'm feeling good. We've got some really great news this week with vaccines. You know, 2 really solid vaccines. It sounds like.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So you know, we're encouraged by that, and hopefully by this time next year things are more under control, and we'll make it through it.
Yeah, but so it's kind of with Utah, with all their liquor law, and you know the I don't know if it's even liquor law. It's just the alcohol laws and the ABVs and all that stuff. I'm surprised that so you can ship liquor out of there freely and not an issue. I mean, I know that the state that the consignee, the state, the receiving state is probably more of a challenge than Utah.
It is, yeah. Well, for one thing, I mean, we can ship everything out no problem to distributors. That's you know, part of interstate commerce, no big deal. We can't fulfill our online e-commerce store. It has to be fulfilled actually out of California.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's where that's happening from. It's coming out of San Diego, and because of one of the Utah restrictions that we can't necessarily ship directly to folks, which is sad because you know then we got to pay somebody to do it. But here we are.
Not negative. I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, it's a limitation, right? But I mean, but you've opened something up that hasn't been done since Prohibition. So at least in your county, right? I mean, so that's pretty awesome.
As far as we can tell, there are no tax records for any alcohol sales in this county until we got here.
Oh, so wow. You got to make sure you got an awesome beard. You got you got an awesome beard. I mean, I'm thinking you exploit that stuff back to the day and be like, hey, you know, I'm the guy. Like, I need to get my stuff out to the people.
Yeah, well, you know, and I could, but I don't know. Not that I'm afraid to or don't really want to, but you know, Utah is Utah. It's great. It's a wonderful place to live. But honestly, you know, I think the biggest thing for this is really getting the exposure across the country. And you know, I don't know that Utah really even needs to be as a focus, other than the fact that it's novel that you know you're making booze in Utah, which in itself raises an eyebrow on everybody. But but beyond that, we'd love to be as ubiquitous as High West. And I think we have a good shot at that. So
yeah, no, I do too. I mean, I think. hey, these things could be. I mean, both of them are fantastic. I don't know. I'm leaning towards that Josephine though. I did have a little sip, and it could be. I mean, I'm a big jazz guy, so I mean, it could be.
So Matt, how many different types of batches or whatnot did you go through in order to kind of land in on what the Josephine is today?
That's probably the 30th iteration.
Oh wow! Wow.
Yeah.
I know you said you were messing around with or you're playing with the alcohol content, and just settled in on the one that it's at, whatnot. So about 30 different ones. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is a whole lot. We varied a lot of stuff. I mean, we played a lot around with the fruits. Actually, the original one had orange in it. Orange, which sounds really good, but when you distill oranges, it's surprisingly earthy, and you get almost no orange flavor. It's almost
get
like
the peel.
Not even the peel. No,
rind?
it's almost like dirt.
Really?
Really?
I mean, yeah, it's a really, to borrow a tasting note from another distillery, forest floor. It's not orangey at all, and it worked to some degree because it did give it some complexity. But I think the fruits that we're using now, I think the strawberry really is a better option than the orange for that. But that was the fun, right? I mean, you try different stuff, and there you go.
Okay.
I was trying to look. I saw it, and I can talk about it. But so you've got two. What do you call your still? I mean, they're two copper stills, but are they pot stills?
It is a pot still. Yeah, we don't do continuous distilling at this point. If we do, and actually that's part of the work that I'm doing right now is to expand our production capacity. We need to go. I'm shooting for about 10 times our production capacity right now.
Wow.
Well, hey, way to like be aggressive.
Yeah, that's
almost out of necessity. I mean, honestly, it's that won't last us too long. I'm actually thinking that might last us 1 or 2 years before we're looking at get more equipment. Yeah, but yeah, it's a pot still. It's a copper pot still. Very similar to what you would do with brandies and whiskeys. That's kind of the focus of the equipment is done there too. And I like, as far as a line arm goes, I like a downward line arm because that actually picks up a lot more rich flavors instead of being a lighter spirit. I actually prefer to have more flavor included, and there's ways to mitigate that too. We have used a doubler or a thumper, also known as a retort or a parasitic boiler. So I would argue that's double distilling. We can chat about that, but that'd be a whole hour in itself.
But I mean, you don't have a category anyway, so you can do whatever the hell you want to do.
Exactly right. Yeah, I don't need to worry about the difference between Irish and Scotch whiskey. I don't have to. No, whatever. This is Josephine.
Oh, hold on, I'll get back into that.
Very
No,
cool.
I think it's fantastic. Yeah. But I mean, the shop that you're working in, the pictures that I, snooped out on you. I mean, it looks cool, man. I mean, you got, I saw you had 2 and it's like you need like 10 more. So
pretty much
couldn't be a better story.
Yeah. It's an awesome
thanks,
story.
man. Yeah.
It's an awesome
In a place that you can't even make damn liquor.
Right.
Especially, not only can you not make it, but you can't sell it.
Yeah.
Can't make it, can't sell it during a pandemic also. And here we are.
Yeah.
How did that work out?
Pretty awesome story, bud.
If people want to buy, they go to clearwaterdistilling.com and hit the shop button, right? And that's how you can get it shipped directly to you.
Yep. Or you can go straight to shop.clearwaterdistilling.com as well. And then if you're in Utah, we do the curbside, and the site for that is clearwaterdistilling.square.site.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Well, it's been fun. What else? What did we talk about, Matt?
What didn't we talk about? Well, one of the things I'd like to kind of point out is, and then I don't know that a lot of distillers are doing this, but since we're using these folks like Lorenz and Josephine, who really are quite iconic folks, and the one we're actually going to be using for our upcoming spirit, which, by the way, we're going to call a Ryman-Yak.
Oh, okay.
Can I go? I mean, let me know where to send me the PayPal or whatever it is. I'll send the money.
We'll definitely set you up for sure. But and that one's going to be named after a gentleman named Rene Cassin. And he was French, and he fought in World War I and was injured severely and basically scarred, not just physically, but also mentally from war, and made it his life's ambition and life's work really kind of to to work out human rights and try to avoid war, because war is just a terrible, terrible thing.
Yeah.
It's never a good thing for, especially for the folks who are in it. And so he actually ended up winning the Nobel Peace Prize, enacted tons of legislation in France that was geared towards veterans' rights, veterans' benefits, taking care of anyone who had to fight in the wars. And because up to that point, governments weren't taking care of their soldiers. They were saying like, hey, go fight, but when you come back, okay, whatever. So even if you have lasting injuries mentally or physically, we weren't necessarily going to take care of you. And he made it so that the France at least did that. Also, the United Nations enacted a lot of did a lot of work with them, essentially in the name of human rights. So he was a great person. But to that point, with the historic icons that we're putting on these bottles, one of the things that we're doing, since we are in a way exploiting them, for the benefit of the spirits, is we want to give back. So with Josephine Baker, what we're doing with her is we've picked a charity, and it's the Child Art Foundation, the International Child Art Foundation, which we figured for her, since she was very much into the entertainment and performing arts, but also is a great appreciation of art. But then it's the kind of thing that teaches kids the art within the context of empathy, which, since she was a civil rights advocate, really made a big difference. And we think would be a great honor to her. For being able to use her likeness to say that, we want to contribute to this charity in your name, because we're using this, and thought that she would appreciate that. So next month, we're going to be sending out a check to them, and we're going to do this at the end of every year for all of our spirits. And Lawrence, since he was an Arctic explorer and very much an outdoorsman and appreciated nature and everything, we figured the best charity for him would be the Ocean Conservancy.
Oh, nice.
And there's a place on the web called GuideStar, which is really I guess you could call it a charity rating service or site or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And they largely rate them on how much of the money that you contribute actually goes to the cause, versus all the overhead and and how they operate. So both of these charities that we've chosen for them they're platinum rated charities on GuideStar, and we're going to eventually pick the charity for Renee, after we launch next year. But it's very likely to be a human rights charity. But that's one of the things I think that folks, I just like them to know. We're here, as a business, we're trying to make money and everything too. But we feel that we just feel better about giving back.
Yeah.
Well, it's on your website. I mean, it shows. But you scroll down to the bottom, and that's. I'm glad you brought it up, and I didn't have to, because it says for every bottle we give back, and I'm like, well, I don't know where we're giving back to, and you just sold us. So I mean, that's pretty. Yeah, it's awesome, and as you should. Hey, if you're gonna have a drink, you should share a drink, and a drink doesn't necessarily mean a drink. It could be. A gift back to someone else in the community. I like the way
the different ones that you have there, you're giving back to the causes that they were kind of involved with, and that's just a very thoughtful thing to do, and a great story for sure. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah.
Matt, where can people find you and Josephine and Lawrence?
All right. So we are in Pleasant Grove, Utah. We're about 30 miles south of Salt Lake. Again, the only distillery right now in Utah County. So right now we're a bit shut, a bit closed up for COVID, at least until this kind of blows over for the winter, and things settle down a little bit. And then, like we said, we'll have the tasting room open and whatnot. Online, we're at clearwaterdistilling.com. And like you said, if you want to find some Josephine and Lawrence, shop.clearwaterdistilling.com. And there's also a link on the main site. Another thing that we're doing too, and that's going to be coming up here in about the next 3 or 4 weeks, is we're going to be offering 100 milliliter samples, sizes of both of them online, so that you can order those. Yeah,
it's very cool. That's a good idea.
Thanks. Yeah, and the other cool thing we think about that is, since a lot of restaurants and bars are actually doing cocktail delivery.
Yeah.
During COVID.
Wow.
I think it really kind of helps with that, because then you could, a nice 100 isn't the tiny little airplane one, but a nice 100 is a solid drink or two for two people, or, if you're alone and you want something stout. So
yeah, it's a great idea. I didn't even think about the cocktails to go thing.
Stout, but equally good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So there you have it.
Matt, it's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you for spending, some of your early afternoon with us, I guess.
Yeah, I guess early evening.
Yeah,
Starting to get dark.
Yeah, it's looking like it's getting dark behind you over there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's Utah, so the mountains, the sun goes down fast, man, for sure.
Yep.
It's been, thank you so much. I mean, I've had a great time. These things I'm going to share these with a lot of friends, and or some of these pours with a lot of friends in some samplings, and we may actually send a note back out and be like, hey, could you come on during a live sampling? Do you have you got a Instagram, don't you? I think that's how I found. I think so. We connected. Yeah. So you'd be open to coming on like a live tasting on Instagram with us?
Absolutely, and that's one of the other things we want to do with the hundreds is we want to start setting up some virtual tastings, and get a bunch of folks on and do that.
I'll push some of these out to some folks, and I'll set us up an Instagram tasting, man. We'd love to do that.
All right.
Awesome, buddy. Let me see. Hold on. I'm gonna go with the Lawrence on this one, and I'm still sticking with my original. But hey, Matt, cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
You bet. Great meeting you guys.